Or they just down on vacation?
He'll be gone a month. He's camping out. He's on the edge of the Evergreen process, camping out. He's got that
Oh, okay.
We are in the middle of chapter 14. I hope my voice makes it through the day. We're on page 136 of the notes. Thank you for hanging on. We've still got a month and a half to go. It's going to be tight to get to the end of the book by that time. May have to run over one class or two, but I'm going to try to get after it, which means we move pretty quickly. Again, folks are dropping off. I do kind of a little hint that if you're diligent to the end, there are rewards.
Some bribery.
To the end. I know, this is, Mike got up last week and said, some people said that, I understand it even better, and some people say, I am more confused than ever. So I hope not to make you confused. I hope that I provide you with biblical evidence for everything.
I told him that you were debunking him, and he didn't believe it.
No, he and I are extremely
Close on that.
parallel on most things.
He didn't believe it.
I think it's only until the end of the book that I think otherwise. But
Julie's all spread out here. You got it through there. Alligators have these, you may have them.
I think you have to brave the cold more than you have to brave my class, but I think the two are putting people away. But anyway, all right. So we're in verse 8, the vision of the angel with the gospel. Here in verse 8 he says, and another angel, the second one, followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who has made all of the nations drink of the wine of the passion of her immorality. I'm going to go ahead and read the rest of the chapter, I guess. Then another angel, a third one, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives the mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. They have no rest day and night. No rest day and night. Those who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. Here is the perseverance of the saints who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, so that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds may follow them. I want to stop there because the next section kind of changes tack a little bit. Now this is the first time we bump into this concept of Babylon. Babylon was the old city who was full of paganism. And here it becomes a symbol of those who are caught up in this whole whoredom of worshiping other gods. So the whole world is caught up in her sins, spiritual adultery, worldliness, desire, lust, hate, force. And we'll get into Babylon more in chapters 17 and 18. At the time that Revelation was written, Rome had not yet fallen, and yet you see here it says Rome has fallen. So is this pointing to a time in the future, or is this the way God makes pronouncements? It's like he says, okay, it's done. He says in the very first book of the Bible, he essentially says, I've made a plan from the very beginning. And Isaiah points to that and says, what God says in the beginning is essentially done. If God says it, it's going to happen. It's like as it happens. So Isaiah 46:9 through 10. Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is none like me. I make known from the end the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. And Isaiah 48:3, I foretold the former things long ago. My mouth announced them, and I made them known. Suddenly I acted, and they came to pass. For I knew how stubborn you were. The sinews of your neck were iron. Your forehead was bronze. Therefore I told you these things long ago. Before they happened, I announced them to you, so that they could not say, my idols did them. My wooden image and my metal god ordained them. You all heard these things. Look at them all. Will you not admit them? So the second warning is that Rome will fall. This world of idolatry mixed with the power of the Roman kingdom will fall. And so it follows then that a third angel says in a loud voice, he says, okay, before you start getting entranced by this world, he says, let me tell you what's going to happen here. Who would you rather face? He says, this wrath is going to come unmixed. The strength in his cup of anger, and he will be tormented with fire and brimstone. So he says, is essentially saying, which one would you rather face? Would you rather face the torture and physical death, or would you rather face the wrath of God? And so this is kind of how he talks about his wrath. So I tell you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that do no more. But I will show you whom you should fear. Fear him who, after the killing of the body, has the power to throw you into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. That's from Luke 12. So this cup of wrath is how God speaks of judgment. And here are 3 out of Jeremiah that point to that. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, said to me. Take from my hand this cup filled with the wine of my wrath, and make all the nations whom I send you drink it. When they drink it, they will stagger and go mad because of the sword I will send among them. Then tell them, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Drink, get drunk and vomit, and fall and to rise no more because of the sword I will send among you. But if they refuse to take the cup from your hand and drink, tell them, this is what the Lord Almighty says. You must drink it. See, I am beginning to bring disaster on the city that bears my name. And will you indeed go unpunished? You will not go unpunished, for I am calling down a sword upon all those who live on the earth, declares the Lord Almighty. And then from Jeremiah 51, Babylon was a gold cup in the Lord's hand. She made the whole earth drunk. The nations drank her wine. Therefore they have now gone mad. Babylon will suddenly fall and be broken. Wail over her. Okay? So, do we not find that the people who are entranced with the world go mad with the things of the world? Today, even? Do you see that today? Yeah, I see some really bizarre things. Yeah. All right. He says, so this calls for patient endurance. He says, because of this, you've got to endure, and the saints who obey the commandments must and remain faithful to Jesus. So, just like, perhaps we're not facing critical times like these folks were, but I think the call is still for us to remain extremely faithful to the call of what we're to do, to continue to meet here or whatever that we need to do to keep the faith going. I'm going to ask a question here in a little bit that I think is worthy of perhaps some discussion that relates to this. So he says, I want to point out this difference between this earthly view and this heavenly view, this eternal view. And so before you falter and just look at this physical that's before you, consider the eternal view. And in so do, like Romans says, Not only so, but we also joy in our sufferings, earthly view, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, and that perseverance is an eternal perspective. Perseverance, character, and character, hope, and hope does not disappoint us because God has poured out His love onto our hearts by the Holy Spirit, whom He has given us. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Like 13:10, Revelation 13:10, which we read before, if anyone is to go into captivity he will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword he will be killed. This calls for the patient endurance and faithfulness on part of the saints. Okay? So I want to ask you a question. Do you think that the persecution was required in order that Christianity is then set apart from any other religion? It was so different that people would die for it, that it had an eternal perspective.
Yes.
Do you think that the persecution was necessary to establish the church? Okay. Very nods. I mean, I think I read from you that book that said that without the plagues, they didn't think Christianity would have survived. Okay, well, plagues are just some earthly challenge that you had to go through.
Doesn't that discount God?
Okay, well, that's what I was asking, yeah.
Well, I have to disagree with my husband, but it happens about weekly. But anyway, I do think I think Christianity would survive regardless, because I think God revealed Himself in the beginning. I think God that inner part of us that God dwells. I think He would let the inhabitants of earth know.
Okay.
It appears to me that all things which have happened have occurred as a result of God's will.
Okay.
Amen.
So the persecution was God's will, and how can we dismiss it?
Right.
How can we say anything else? It was necessary because it was His will.
Right.
That's where I come from.
He definitely uses circumstances. I mean, he made the Pharaoh's heart hard. I mean, did he also cause this to happen, or was this the natural effect that they fought back against this? I mean, it was just another religion. Why couldn't they have accepted it like any other God?
And to ask that question, it always also begs the second question. Well, is persecution necessary for maintaining proper spirituality? And that flies in the face, kind of, in my mind, with the call that we would have life abundantly, abundant life.
Okay, but is that abundant life fulfilled on this side of heaven? I mean, aren't all the blessings that come out of the Beatitudes all fulfilled on the other side?
I think what we probably all agree with is the persecution had a purpose.
Okay.
Now, what we're quibbling about here is it necessary in everyone's life, even now? And that's what worries us.
Okay.
We don't want that.
I think it is necessary because there's a theme through the Bible of when we're weak, God is strong. And I think we all fight against that human nature of like not putting God in His proper place. And so we need to be brought weak so we
Right, to rely on something other than ourselves.
understand God's strength.
It seems like during times of persecution is when the church has grown the fastest. And the last time that we heard of the country as a whole calling upon the Lord was 9/11.
Amen. Yeah.
When we were being attacked, then people turn to the Lord. When things are going good, well, not so much so. We don't
Okay.
need Him that much.
Kevin?
It's kind of like spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah.
You know, you persecute, per se, your child to straighten them out.
Yeah. You discipline them. Romans 5 here, and the ones I just said, consider it joy that you go through these trials because it makes you better. It perfects you. while you're here on earth.
I think, to John's point about life abundantly, I think suffering prepares you to be able to withstand life's trials with joy, peace, all those fruits of the Spirit. So that is an abundant life. It may not be like, in our minds, physical, material blessings, but that, I think, is the abundant life more spiritually.
Okay. I found something interesting this week. I'm sitting at my desk, an email comes in, had renewals on my corporate insurance, not only malpractice, but just my facility insurance and all that kind of stuff. And this year, first time I've ever seen it, they are listing several exclusions. Okay, you can't claim any claim that is the result of war or the result of a pandemic. Okay, so they are pretty much saying, okay, we're going to cover you if it floods or if if the place burns down or whatever, but not if it's war and not if there's a big pandemic. So you think they just pull that out of the air this year, or do you think people are saying, they got away with it last time because several people did say, my business collapsed because of whatever, and of course the PPP came along and the ERC monies and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know if my business went down 90% for a month and a half.
I suppose when we were thinking about the persecution back in those days, it was a physical persecution. But do we not feel persecution today when we see the world going the direction it's going? If we're truly Christians and we believe in God, and then we see things happening, doesn't that persecute us, and doesn't that make us stronger?
Yeah.
There's a passage in Isaiah, though, about those people who mourn about those events. They mourn about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really strange, we don't even have to stand up under physical persecution. All we have is social canceling, or you're one of those stupid Christians who, if the baby falls in the pool, you're just going to kneel down and pray. Okay? You're just like, what? I mean, do you misunderstand us so much? Yeah.
I think it's interesting that the insurance companies are willing to cover you under acts of God, but not from human stupidity. Because that's what it comes down to.
Something like that, yeah. And aren't they all acts of God ultimately? Yeah.
Sounds like you need to have Pam call your insurance company.
Don't tempt me.
It's a strange world. I've had all the hospitals we do work for, they wanted us to double our coverage. Everybody's nervous. Of course, several of them got hacked. St. Joe's got hacked. Their systems went down. They had to go total paper. They lost $18 million a day for a while until they could get that fixed.
I got a question. How do they distinguish between terrorism and war?
Well,
that's a
I know
sidebar,
somebody's
but
got
that's
a
just something to think
definition out there,
Well, I mean, 9/11,
Yeah.
what was it?
What I find interesting about that, I've never heard that they literally wanted to increase or cut your insurance because of war. Well, this is election year, and among our neighbors, they're kind of predicting a war regardless of which way it goes.
Yeah. I find it interesting. This is the first time in running businesses for 40 years I've ever seen that. We've been in and out of wars, but it's the first time I've ever said, it's just listed right there, we won't cover you if it's war.
Do they want you to take out a rider?
No,
Nothing.
they won't cover it. It's an exclusion to our coverage. It's interesting.
This one's gonna be civil, that's why.
It could be, I don't know. All right, so then come along these reapers, and I just love this, the symbolism here. He says, then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and sitting on the cloud was one like the Son of Man, having a gold crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. And another angel came out of the temple, crying out with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, put your sickle and reap, for the hour, or put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come, because the harvest of the earth is ripe. Then he who sat on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, and he also had a sharp sickle. Then another angel, one who has power over fire, came out from the altar, and he called with a loud voice to him who had a sharp sickle, saying, put your sharp sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, because her grapes are ripe. So the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered the clusters from the vine of the earth and threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and the blood came out from the winepress up to the horses' bridles for a distance of 200 miles. So these are the same symbols that we saw earlier in some of the early chapters. We have a white cloud, that like a son of man, and he's wearing this crown of gold. And this is not diadem crown, this is Stephanos crown. This is a victory crown. And these white clouds are symbols of righteous judgment. Isaiah 19:1, see, the Lord rides on a swift cloud, and he is coming to Egypt. The idols of Egypt tremble before him, and the hearts of the Egyptians melt within them. Jeremiah 4:13, look, he advances like the clouds, his chariots come like a whirlwind, his horses are swifter than eagles. Woe to us, we are ruined. New Testament, Matthew 24:30, and at the time the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. Matthew 26:64, yes, it is as you say, Jesus replied, but I say to all of you, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. And then back to Revelation 1:7, look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, and even those who pierced him, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn because of him. So shall it be. So they came out of the temple. They had a loud voice. This is from God. It comes from the temple. Just like Matthew 9:37-38. And he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers to harvest his field. Both of those, this verse 15 and 16 of Revelation, Matthew 9, are human agents, but two that follow here are angelic agents. The field is the world, and the good seed stands for the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. Matthew 13:41, the Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. So, the earth is reaped. Are we talking about sometime in the past? Are we talking about a concept? Or is it continually ongoing? Another angel, verse 17, comes out of heaven, and he too has a sharp sickle. Still another angel is in charge of the fire. The earth is ripe. It's certainly ripe for judgment. Reminiscent of Joel 3:13. Swing the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, trample the grapes, for the winepress is full and the vats overflow. So great is their wickedness. The time was so wicked that God had to judge, and he does so in this concept of treading out the grapes in his winepress of wrath. Okay, now I want to get to a concept here a little bit.
Steve, may I ask a question? Back
Yeah.
up just a second. In verse 14, it says, like the Son of Man.
Yeah.
Is that an agent? Or is that, is that
You know, he's
Jesus?
like Jesus, he's angelic.
But
okay?
yet, in Matthew and all those, it's, I
The Son of
take it,
Man.
the Son of Man.
Yes.
I just want to make that
So
distinction.
I do think that this is not the final reaping, okay?
Well, I was raising my hand at that time because it's confusing here in these parables. There's places here where the weeds are reaped out of the heart
Right.
of the good wheat.
Yes.
So the evil is pulled out of that.
Yes.
Other places we see that the righteous are taken first and leaving
Yeah.
the wicked. So
I think the concept I want to get to is the final judgment done in a mode of anger? Okay? This is all about the anger of God regarding the evils in the world. But it is not the final judgment. When you get to the judgment, it's not about wrath. It's not about anger. It's not about that final judgment is a righteous and holy anger. And it's not even anger. It's, and we'll get there. The concepts are different. So this winepress all speaks about his anger. So Isaiah 63, who is coming from Edom, from Bozrah, with his garments stained crimson? Who is this robed in splendor, striding forward in the greatness of his strength? It is I, speaking in righteousness, mighty to save. Why are your garments red like those of the one treading the winepress? I have trodden the winepress alone from the nations. No one was with me. I trampled them in my anger, and I trod them down in my wrath. Their blood splattered my garments, and I stained all my clothing. For the day of vengeance was in my heart, and the year of my redemption has come. I looked, but there was no one to help. I was appalled that no one gave support. So my own arm worked salvation for me, and my own wrath sustained me. I trampled the nations in my anger, and in my wrath I made them drunk and poured out their blood upon the ground. So I think that's the symbolism is different, and we'll get there. Let's continue on a little bit. So they were trampled in this winepress outside the city, and the blood flowed out. It's very similar to that reading in Isaiah. So this indicates it was done outside the city. So the city is the spiritual Jerusalem. This is the judgment that come on all who are marked on the forehead with the devil's sign. And those who are drunk with this wine of the spiritual Babylon. They're just caught up in this whole societal paganism and earthly power all combined. It's never been combined since that time. So this blood is, and the wrath is for those who are outside the spiritual city. This is not all people. This is only those who don't follow Christ, or are not the true Israel. If this was physical, it would be 200 square miles, about 5 feet deep. Okay? That's a lot of blood. So this is perhaps, this 1,600 stadia is perhaps 4 times 4 times 10 times 10, sorry, typo there. But this is not the final judgment that is the one with fire. You see in Matthew 13:24 and Revelation in another place. It's like the one from Joel and Isaiah, that of destroying of the wicked and the harvesting of the souls with the gospel. So this is the sickle. The sickle is the gospel that separates and judges men. 2 Corinthians 2:16. To the one we are the smell of death, to the other the fragrance of life, and who is equal to such a task? In John 3:17, for God did not send us into the world to condemn the world, but to save it through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned. Whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of God and the only Son. So let me see if I can summarize this, and we'll discuss this a little bit. In contrast to the religions of the world, this is chapter 14, summary of the whole chapter. Those devised by human understanding, it is the one true religion, the one with eternal consequences. So against that is the one true religion, the one with eternal consequences. Only those who keep themselves spiritually clean are there in the eternal realm. Yes, the world has its power and seduction, but those who follow him fear his wrath more. The message is proclaimed to all men. Follow the gospel in the Lord only. To those who love the gospel, it is the fragrance of eternal life. To those who reject the gospel, it is the judgment of God's anger. And we'll get into when we get to this, we get 7 bowls of wrath. So he says, I'm going to pour out my wrath, okay? And then the next chapter in 15, we have 7 bowls of wrath. And these have symbolics. Okay, how is God's wrath, his anger, played out? So we first see this scene in heaven. And then I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels who had 7 plagues, which are the last, because in them the wrath of God is finished. Now, not the judgment of God, the wrath of God is finished. And I saw something like the sea of glass mixed with fire, and those who had been victorious over the beast and his image, and the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, holding harps of God. And they sang the song of Moses, the bondservant of God, the song of the Lamb, saying, "Great are and marvelous are your works, O Lord God, the Almighty. Righteous and true are your ways, King of the nations. Who will not fear, O Lord, and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. For all the nations will come and worship before you. For your righteous acts have been revealed." Okay, I'm going to stop there on verse 4. So, here is the third in a series of signs. The 2 before were the radiant woman of Revelation 12:1 and the sign of the dragon in Revelation 12:13. So this is the third sign. Because with them God's wrath is completed. Some indicate this means the final judgment, as the word used for completed is toleo. Its definition is to finish, but it also means to find consummation or to reach perfection, to perform or to fulfill. Maybe better read as, with them God's wrath is fulfilled. These 7 plagues fulfill the wrath, the anger of God that is due these men for their actions. So is the final judgment an act of anger, or is it an act of righteousness? And I want you to consider that as we go along. Verse 2, he says, I see this sea of glass mixed with fire. Now we've seen this sea a couple of times. We've seen it from the Old Testament, some sort of bronze separation between the people. You guys gave me a nice new one, and I probably lost it already.
Yeah, we did.
All right, there it is. Okay, here's the people, saints. And here's God on his throne. As you can tell, I'm not a very good artist. Anyway, so there's the throne. Here's this sea of glass. Okay, and we've seen this before, and towards the end of the chapter, this quote sea disappears, and some people say, well, that's the earthly sea, because the earth is burnt up in fire, and there's no earthly physical sea anymore. I think it means that the separation between men and God disappears. There is no longer a separation. So we see this sea of glass. It here is mixed with fire. So is this the fire of judgment? Is this the fire of fiery trials through which the saints have to pass through in becoming holy? So Zechariah 13:7, awake, O sword, against my shepherd and against the man who is close to me, declares the Lord Almighty. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered, and I will turn my hand against the little ones in the whole land, declares the Lord. 2/3 will be struck down and perish, yet 1/3 will be left in it. This third I will bring into the fire, refine them like silver, and test them like gold, and they will call on my name, and I will answer them. And I will say, they are my people, and they will say, the Lord is our God. So are these the fiery trials? Is this a symbol of the fiery trials that we have to go to separate, to eliminate the separation between God and man? Malachi 3:2-3. But who can endure the day of his coming? Who can stand when he appears? For he will be like a refiner's fire or a launderer's soap. He will sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and like silver. And the Lord will have men who will bring offerings in righteousness. If any man builds on this foundation of gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, his work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring to it to light, and will be revealed with fire, and fire will test the quality of each man's work. And what if he has built survives, he will receive his reward. If it is burned up, he will suffer loss. He himself will be saved, but only as one escaping through the flames. These have come so that your faith, of great and more worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. So, we have this persecution, we have this time, and the Revelation kind of sets this timeline in place. Here we have the cross. Then there is a period of quiet. Then we have Nero, and we have Domitian. And then we have some point at which Christianity is a full thing. I don't know how to put a church symbol or something. John, you know about a lot of the writings of the people through this time, those bishops, that, you know, and there was quite a lot of infighting. It's one of the reasons Constantine kind of stepped in to say, stop bickering amongst yourselves. We're going to have one way of doing this. There is a tripartite God. Okay, that was a big discussion for a long time. Okay, 200 years they fought about whether Christ was fully man or just fully God. Wasn't fully man. Or was he not fully man? Was he fully man but not fully God? That was a huge concept at the time.
The saddest part about it, after all those writings sorted things out,
Yes.
with the Holy Spirit's help, I'm just going to say, a piece of that junk became the basis of the Book of Islam.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
It's
totally ironic thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And and then reading this book I've been reading, throughout time, there's totally different concepts of what the church is supposed to be doing. And yes, some of it was because it was in control of these popes who had their own ideas. There was a portion of Spain or France that was rebellious in 1300. And the Pope said, okay, I'm tired of these rebellious folks. They don't want to come under the power of the Roman Catholic Church. They think they can have their own church. They think they can have communion without a bishop or there. Okay, they're not allowed to do that. Let's just go kill them all. And people were saying, kill them all? He says, well, God knows his own. He says, it's kind of like, just kill them all, let God sort them out. It was that way, and they wiped them out. Because they considered it heresy. Okay, 300-400 years of heresy in order to stamp out all these churches who say, well, I don't want to recognize the Pope. I'm not going to bow down to this Pope because of the terrible thing that Pope was doing. So, was this period of persecution helpful in refining the ideology, refining the people to give up everything for the heavenly. Was it necessary to establish the church?
It was probably necessary, but it doesn't hardly make any sense.
It does, yeah.
You'd think that you could get the Christianity where we are today without so much suffering.
Yeah. You know, just the 7 churches, it says, you know, you gotta stand up under some things. There's stuff coming your way. If you remain faithful, if you endure, there are results of that. So. All right, dang it, we didn't get too far, did we? Verse 3 and 4, where we'll leave off the page 143. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Dean, you